Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel Sparkle English, where I help you improve your English level. Today we're going to talk about run-on sentences and comma splices and how to identify and fix them. So first of all, what are run-ons? Run-ons occur when two or more independent clauses are joined together improperly without using appropriate punctuation or conjunctions. Run-ons are also known as run-on sentences, fused sentences, and comma splices are a type of run-on sentence. First, let's quickly talk about independent clauses. An independent clause expresses a complete thought. It can stand alone as a sentence. Let's look at these examples. I enjoy reading. This is an independent clause. It contains a subject, I, and a verb or a predicate, enjoy reading. Another example, the cat is friendly. We have a subject, the cat, and the predicate is friendly. We ate pizza for lunch. All of these are independent clauses because they contain subjects and predicates. We are not left with any other doubts or questions. They make sense as they are. Here are some examples of clauses that are not independent clauses. Because it's fun. While we have a subject and a predicate in this clause, with the conjunction because, we're left with questions. What is fun? What are you talking about? Even though it's shy. Well, what is shy? During the afternoon. What's during the afternoon? We're missing a verb and a subject here. So if a clause leaves us with doubt or confusion, it's not a complete thought. So now that we know what an independent clause is, how can we identify run-ons? When you look at a sentence, look to see if there's a lack of conjunction, if it's missing a conjunction. So if we have two independent clauses or two complete thoughts, and they are connected without a coordinating conjunction, such as and, but, or, nor, for, yet, or so, or a subordinating conjunction, it might be a run-on. For example, Jessica writes music. She plays the guitar. Here, we have two independent clauses. Jessica writes music. We have the subject, we have the verb or predicate, and then we have the subject again, she, and another predicate, and there's no conjunction here. So we need to fix this. Jessica writes music, comma, and she plays the guitar. There are many ways to correct run-ons in English, and this is just one. But we will talk about other ways to correct run-ons later on. Another example. The cake was delicious. Everyone wanted seconds. Well, once again, we have two independent clauses. We have the subject, the cake, the predicate was delicious, and again, the subject, everyone, and the predicate wanted seconds. So this is a run-on because there's no conjunction. So let's add one. The cake was delicious, comma, so everyone wanted seconds. Again, we connect two independent clauses with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. I have more videos on all of this as well that you can check out in my punctuation playlist. Another way to identify run-ons is with a misuse of punctuation. So using a comma where a semicolon, period, or conjunction is needed can result in a run-on. For example, it's late, comma, we should go home. This is a run-on sentence known as a comma splice, and that is when we use a comma to combine two independent clauses instead of separating them into two sentences using a semicolon or a conjunction. One way to correct this would be to replace the comma with a semicolon. Now it's correct. Here's another example of a comma splice. Patty loves shopping, comma, she visits a lot of thrift stores. In this example, we could just split this into two sentences. Patty loves shopping, period. She visits a lot of thrift stores. Again, there are many ways to correct run-on sentences. This is just one example. So that leads me to the next slide, how to correct run-ons. Let's take this example of a run-on sentence. Ben wants to go home. He's tired. So this run-on is a comma splice. We're incorrectly using this comma. Well, how can we correct this? One way would be to just use a period and separate it into two sentences. Ben wants to go home, period. He's tired. Another way to correct a run-on is to use a semicolon. Now, we would only use a semicolon if the sentences are closely related. Imagine you are speaking to someone and you said, Ben wants to go home. I just watched a great movie last night. Well, those sentences are not related at all. The second clause here, he's tired, is a continuation essentially of the first sentence. It's directly related. So in this example, we could use a semicolon. Ben wants to go home, semicolon, he's tired. Note that after a semicolon, you would not capitalize the first letter of the next word unless it's a proper noun. Another way to correct a run-on would be to add a conjunction. We have different types of conjunctions, coordinating conjunctions and subordinating conjunctions. Because is a subordinating conjunction, and usually we don't use a comma before it. So Ben wants to go home because he's tired. That is correct. If you used a coordinating conjunction, you would have to use a comma before it. Ben wants to go home, comma, for he's tired. Before we continue, if you want more help with your punctuation skills, I recommend you purchase my Punctuation Rules ebook, which I've linked you to in the description below. This contains a very easy-to-read punctuation guide with the most important punctuation rules in English. Your purchase also helps support me as a channel, continuing to provide free lessons like this one. So now let's talk about run-ons versus complex sentences in English. Because sometimes it's not a run-on, it's just a complex sentence. So a complex sentence combines one independent clause with at least one dependent clause. So first, let's look at a run-on. The weather was cold, we stayed indoors. This is a run-on because we have two independent clauses with no punctuation or conjunction. But an example of a complex sentence would be, because the weather was cold, comma, we stayed indoors. This is a complex sentence. We have an independent clause, we stayed indoors, and we have a dependent clause, because the weather was cold. So this is correct because two independent clauses joined is a run-on, but a dependent clause joined with an independent clause is a complex sentence. Sometimes you might have the dependent clause first, in which case it's followed by a comma. Or you might have the independent clause first. We stayed indoors because the weather was cold. So we use a comma after the dependent clause when it comes before the independent clause. Otherwise, we do not have a comma before the subordinating conjunction. Another example of a run-on. It was raining, the picnic continued as planned. So this would be a run-on sentence because, again, we have two independent clauses. It was raining, and the picnic continued as planned. We don't have a conjunction here or proper punctuation. But a complex sentence would be, even though it was raining, comma, the picnic continued as planned. And this is correct because even though it was raining is a dependent clause combined correctly with an independent clause. And if the independent clause came first, the picnic continued as planned, even though it was raining. Here we would not put a comma before the subordinating conjunction, even though. as commas are typically only used before coordinating conjunctions. So now we're going to have a quiz on run-ons. This quiz will be a little more difficult because I'm going to read a couple paragraphs to you, and you must take your time to identify and correct any run-ons. You can use any of the methods I have taught you in this lesson. There are many ways to correct run-ons, so use your preferred method. Maria woke up early. She was excited about the day ahead. It was Saturday. She had plans to go to the mall with her friends. They had been planning this for weeks. It was a sunny day and perfect for their day out. They decided to meet at 10 a.m. Maria arrived 10 minutes early. She waited outside the main entrance. She didn't mind waiting. She enjoyed watching people come and go. Her friends arrived and they quickly started talking about where to go first. They decided on checking out the new clothing store. So let's identify the run-ons. The first sentence is a run-on. We have two independent clauses that are mashed together. Maria woke up early. She was excited about the day ahead. We can fix this in many ways. I'm just going to add a semicolon here. Remember, you have a space after the semicolon. Maria woke up early. Imagine this is my semicolon. She was excited about the day ahead. You could also add a subordinating conjunction. Maria woke up early because she was excited about the day ahead. We also have another run-on after. It was Saturday. She had plans to go to the mall with her friends. Here you could turn this into a semicolon again, although I think it's a good idea not to overuse semicolons. I'm going to add the coordinating conjunction and. We keep the comma. It was Saturday, and she had plans to go to the mall with her friends. Now this is a very long run-on sentence because we have another independent clause after. They had been planning this for weeks. So I'm going to change this comma into a period and end the sentence and capitalize they. It was Saturday, comma, and she had plans to go to the mall with her friends, period. Capital T, they had been planning this for weeks. The next sentence is correct. It was a sunny day and perfect for their day out. This is correct. We don't need a comma because perfect for their day out is not an independent clause, so this is fine. They decided to meet at 10 a.m. Maria arrived 10 minutes early. Here, we could separate this into two sentences. We could also add a conjunction. I'm going to add but. They decided to meet at 10 a.m., but Maria arrived 10 minutes early. She waited outside the main entrance. That's an independent clause. She didn't mind waiting is also an independent clause. So we're going to add a period after entrance and capitalize she. She waited outside the main entrance, period. She didn't mind waiting. She enjoyed watching people come and go. Well, this time I'm going to actually erase this comma and add the subordinating conjunction because. So she didn't mind waiting because she enjoyed watching people come and go. Remember that before subordinating conjunctions, we don't typically use commas, which is why I erase this comma. Next, her friends arrived, comma, and they quickly started talking about where to go first. I'm going to change this comma into a period because her friends arrived is an independent clause. They quickly started talking about where to go first is another independent clause, and it has been joined correctly with a comma plus a coordinating conjunction and. So that sentence is complete as it is, and we're going to change they into capital T. They decided on checking out the new clothing store. Perfect, okay? Once again, there are many ways to correct run-ons. You might use semicolons, you might separate into two sentences, or add conjunctions. Just make sure to follow the rules correctly. And I always recommend changing it up. You don't want a paragraph full of semicolons. you don't want to overdo it. It's nice to have a variety of semicolons, coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions to make your written work more interesting. So let me know in the comment section if you were able to identify all of the run-ons in those paragraphs, or if you had any troubles identifying them. Feel free to let me know other ways you decided to make corrections to these paragraphs. Thanks again for watching and supporting my channel, and make sure to stay tuned for my next lesson.